Buffalo Bills, ladies and gentlemen. Mel Kiper ended up putting out here. Let me switch my phone real fast. There's that crispy audio that we all know and love. Mel Kiper just ended up releasing his mock draft, and lo and behold, he had Jahdae Barron, cornerback from the University of Texas, as the Buffalo Bills selection with their overall pick in the first round. Now, on today's episode, we are going to be doing a massive NFL draft profile. We're going to be looking at specific clips. We're going to be looking at his strengths, his weaknesses, and to see whether or not that he could potentially be a fit for this Buffalo Bills defense, right? We need to address the defense, right? Starting off with the defensive line, starting off with the CB2, since Rasul Douglas is more than likely not going to return in 2025. And I don't think a lot of us are going to be upset about that. And then ultimately, also some safety work and really just an overhaul of some key personnel on this defensive side of the football. Now, one thing I do want to say prior to us diving into this, a lot of people watching this episode are probably going to be like, no, Dan, like we need no matter what to go for a defensive lineman with this overall pick. Well, one thing I always like throwing out there, folks, is that if we hyper focus on a specific position, especially if by the time that it comes to our overall pick in the NFL draft, and all of those defensive tackles or edge rushers don't necessarily have a first round grade, that's how you end up getting stuck with the Kyer Elams of the world, right? Let's reflect back on the 2022 NFL draft. Trent McDuffie was taken 2 picks prior to the Buffalo Bills selection. And rather than going through our Rolodex of different positional needs, we decided, no, it doesn't matter. We need a cornerback. We're going to reach for somebody that doesn't even necessarily have a first round grade in the first place. And that is how you get stuck with some of these players. So what I'm hoping for Brandon Beane is, number one, make sure you have this NFL draft board concrete, ready to go. Don't go into this with the mentality that I need to pick a defensive tackle in the first round. I need to pick an edge rusher in the first round or any other round moving forward. We have to take the best player available depending on who is left when it comes to our positional needs. Don't hyper focus on getting a defensive tackle if all of the solid defensive tackles with a first round grade are gone. There's absolutely 0 point into doing this. I'm not saying that I'm a big Jahdae Barron guy. I like what he could potentially bring to the table. And full transparency, I'm not entirely convinced that he is going to drop to us because I'm not like really feeling a lot of momentum that Brandon Beane is planning on trading up in this year's draft. However, he was mocked to the Buffalo Bills, and it is my job to let you know what he is all about, how he would fit this overall defense, and dive into it. Folks, my name is Dan Mitchell. I'm an NFL content creator. I'm the biggest Buffalo Bills content creator on the internet across all platforms, and I go live twice a day, 11 a.m. and 5:15 p.m. EST. I can imagine a lot of you are probably watching the replay of this video. I highly recommend that you turn on bell notifications after you subscribe because I really want to welcome you into our live chat community. Once I'm done yapping for about 10 minutes about Jahdae Barron and some other topics, I'm going to turn exclusively over to the chat so we can hear what the audience has to say about this potential mock. I do need to give a giant shout out to BetUS. BetUS is the #1 sports book on the face of the planet, folks. And I can tell you this, that they already have lines for the NFL draft and much of free agency. As you can see, man, they are out here throwing lines for all of the free agency landing spot predictions, including Javon Holland, Khalil Mack, Trey Smith, and just about every free agent and or trade target known to man. Now, BetUS is currently matching 150% of your first deposit all the way up to $2,000 and 125% of your second and your third deposit up to the same figure as long as you use code YouTube 150. Supporting my sponsors is the exact same way of supporting me. So go on ahead and show them some love and go over to the BetUS website and sign up. But easily the best way to show support for what I do over here is quite simply just by smashing that like button, folks. We want 150 like buttons absolutely obliterated by the time that this episode is complete. That is including replays. But Jahdae Barron, man, let's go on ahead and take a look. Because obviously we need a CB2, right? Because Rasul Douglas showed signs of regression in 2025. And ultimately, how you look at this overall situation, that needs to be addressed. And again, I want to continue to say this. We cannot hyper focus on a position. If all of the solid defensive tackles are gone, there's no point in drafting a defensive tackle if, for example, they don't have a first round grade. So if all the solid defensive tackles are gone, move on. If all of the corners are gone, move on. If all of the first round grade wide receivers are gone, then you have to go with that next position group. And if none of your position groups are available in the first, dare I say, trade down. But I would put Jahdae Barron as a first round grade out of several of the prospects we have discussed already. He's 5'11". He is 200 pounds, University of Texas, and he is obviously a corner. Now, when I tell you that he is probably one of the most versatile corners, largest resume of being able to fit in just about every single defense, I am not lying to you. This guy has played the slot. He has played the perimeter. He has played dime. He has played nickel. He has done so many things for the University of Texas, and he is all over the place. Pass coverage is his cup of tea. Runs a 4.45 40. He could literally line up with anybody in the NFL right now when it comes into wide receivers outside of the top like 1% of speedsters. But coverage is precisely what you want to see from this guy. Like I said, that 4.45 40 grade is going to be something. I'm very interested to see how he performs during the NFL Combine in just a couple of days when corners end up working out. But this is what NFL Draft Buzz has to say about what he is putting out. He has 80% offensive rating. His tackling is solid. Run defense is at 93%, but coverage at 99%. Someone hide the lotion in the tissues, because that is precisely what I would like to see. He's very, very effective in zone, and man and press is what we are looking for. So when I tell you he's a Swiss Army knife, I genuinely believe that this guy would go out there and have a Quinyon Mitchell sort of, I'd say, rookie season as far as this plays out. So let's go on ahead and check out exactly why he is so versatile, why he is such a highly touted prospect in this NFL draft. And let's take a look. According to the NFL Draft Buzz, he is an elite processor. He diagnoses route combinations in real time, right? This is something that you want to see from a rookie. A lot of corners you'll find in the third and the fourth round need to be coached up, and this is something you slowly develop once you end up getting to the speed of the overall NFL. So, have to love that. He brings controlled violence as a tackler, despite his size, takes proper angles to the ball, and shows some serious dog. In the past, the Buffalo Bills have struggled, okay, with tackling. Last year was a hell of a lot better, but you want to see that from a corner. He's a plant and drive ability that shows up repeatedly on film, beats receivers to the spot on underneath routes, and disrupts timing with precise breaks. High-level zone instincts allows him to bait quarterbacks, plays with exceptional spatial awareness, shows an uncanny knack for lurking in passing windows. Physical press technique at the line despite average length. Patient feet, strong hands allow him to redirect receivers with his 5-yard window. Nasty route recognition. Ball skills show up in contested situations. And special teams ace who brings in immediate value. So I can't tell you how this right here could not only be a solution for, of course, a new CB2 in Rasul Douglas, but also what we were hoping Kaiir Elam could be for this team. We drafted Kaiir Elam, who was known as a man coverage sort of guy, and we hoped that he could learn zone. All right. He had zero impact in the zone game. It was an utter failure in overall looking at what this corner could bring to the table. And now we see Jahdae Barron, who excels in both, and he's also a contributor in special teams. A lot of people were always asking, all right, prior to, of course, Elam becoming public enemy number one, why was Kaiir Elam always a healthy scratch? It was because he brought nothing to the table when it came into special teams contributions. I'm seeing right here, I am seeing an absolutely elite corner that brings as many benefits to the Buffalo Bills as you could ask for. So, intriguing. Now, with every single strength, there's going to come weaknesses. And I feel like we need to unpack this in detail to see if there are any glaring red flags, or if some of these weaknesses, quote unquote, would be considered to be something that could be coachable, right? Weaknesses, Jahdae Barron. Build up speed creates some concerns about matching up on the outside. Has to respect vertical threats, which can leave him vulnerable to double moves. All right. He's going to be asked to run zone in the Buffalo Bills defense. So whether or not that we ask him to just situationally do some man coverage snaps, I'm fine with it. But that's a red flag, something to consider. Frame limitations show up against larger receivers and can struggle to disengage from physical blocking when working against size in the perimeter. Shows some hip tightness when transitioning. Extra steps in his breaks can leave small windows against shifty route runners and can get grabby at the top of the route in man coverage. Man, that would piss me off because that is a massive weakness from Kyer Elam that I don't think a lot of us want to go on ahead and look at. And his aggressive mentality occasionally works against him, will bite on misdirection and take false steps that his recovery speed can't always mask. Now, I'm seeing a couple of things here that can be coached out of him, but I do not like this. He's built up speed, has some concerns when matching up outside, because that's precisely what we need. I like Taron Johnson quite a bit. Like, we don't need another slot corner. If we do, I'm for damn sure not going to be spending a pick on a slot corner in the first round, because that would just be redundant, because essentially we would just be bringing in a guy that would be second on the depth chart for the next 2 to 3 years. We need an impact player immediately. But can we trust our corners? Can we trust our corners and our corners coach to go on ahead and bring out the best in him? Anyway, let's go on ahead and move on into PFF. What does PFF have to say about this young man? All right. He spent 3 years with the Texas Longhorns, 16 games in 2024, 971 defensive snaps. His coverage snaps were 541. Receptions were at 37, targets 68, right? So solid rate when it come into being targeted. And then he ended up having 5 interceptions, which is pretty intriguing, right? Now, snaps by alignment. As you can see, his versatility is on full display right in front of us. Started off exclusively out of the slot, so think of a Taron Johnson-esque sort of corner, and then on the perimeter in 2024, where he was almost exclusively put over in 2024, where he had his best season as a cornerback in college football. 679 snaps out on the perimeter, 142 in the box, 15 deep, which came into it. Now, comparables. This is what you like to look at. He made quarterbacks only complete 54.4% of their passes. His coverage grade was at 91.1. His run defense, 83.3. Man coverage at 69.1 and zone coverage at 91.5. I want to remind everybody that the Buffalo Bills run a predominant zone scheme. All right. So what that tells me is that don't worry about this grade right here, which is certainly not bad at all. I think that it's serviceable. He's going to have to be coached up, and he's going to have to refine some of his grabby tendencies, as NFL Draft Buzz just ended up suggesting. However, a good corner is going to be asked what to do, what they do best. So I like this. I really, really like this in overall zone coverage, right? Force incompletions, he had 10. His coverage stops were at 11. Average depth of target was 7.8. 0 dropped interceptions. So he literally pulls in everything his way. And as we already mentioned, this dude ultimately ended up baiting QBs, especially in zone coverage, which is something that is fantastic. And then 7 missed tackles, which is something to consider right here. And then also a Rolodex of all of his games where he ended up playing his best. Now, last but not least, what I do want to do is I want to go on ahead and check out our good friend and see some clips that can put all of this into fruition. All right, there you go. Let's go ahead and knock this. Drops back. Look, display right there of being able to bait quarterback in overall zone, completely jumped the route and took that home. As QB right over at Baylor, rolling out. Solid coverage right there. He played outside, slot, safety. Again, completely just being a CIA agent out there, very aggressive. He's not taking any terrible angles right at, of course, that that receiver. He's super athletic, drops back solid in the run game. I'll tell you what, very intriguing. So here's my deal with Jahdae Barron, right? Because again, I know everybody is just like, no, we need defensive line. Well, first off, I will tell you that we do have free agency. Okay, so that is also something that I believe that we could address during free agency. Trust me, I want a defensive tackle. I want an edge rusher. But I don't want to go on ahead and have another Kyer Elam situation where we panic pick and we say, oh no, no matter what, we're walking away with the defensive tackle in the first round. Because what I think is intriguing, guys, is that I've seen a couple of these tweets that I think a lot of you guys might be sort of interested in. And check this out. Check this out real fast. And this is not by any stretch of the imagination the Bible, right? Like this guy right here at NFL Draft Files, he is not the all-knowing when it comes into it. But what I did want to point out to you is that as we can see right here, he has listed out players that he believes has a first-round grade. And one of the downsides of being a team that is a good team is that 9 times out of 10, when you're picking at pick 30 or pick 28 or pick 27, 9 times out of 10, you are not going to have 32 first-round grades in any which draft class that you see. And right as you can see, guys, this right here is the full list of 25 first-round grades. Only 25 first-round grades. And like I said, this is not the know-all, be-all sort of like analyst, or this is not a final say, if you will, but right here is what you're going to see. Like there is several sources that are saying that there are only 20 to 27 first round grades in the overall first round. You have Hunter, you have Genty, you have Abdul Carter, you have Mason Graham, you have Pierce, you have Jahdae Barron, who we just ended up looking at, Membo, we have Tyler Warren, Malachi Starks, Will Johnson, Will Campbell, we have Jalen Walker, Mike Green, we have Tet, we have Cam Ward, Kelvin Banks, we have safety out of South Carolina who I like a lot, Loveland, Kenneth Grant, the whole nine. All of these players right here that we're looking at, only first round grades. So it's gonna be intriguing. For me, so would I be mad if we ended up going for Jahdae Barron? Absolutely not, because he's one of the few that I think actually has a first round grade, right? But then again, it's the draft, baby, and we have quite a few things to discuss. Now, again, guys, I can only imagine a lot of you are watching the replay of this video. This is the time of my episode where I transition over to the live chat and we allow them to take control of the conversation, whether or not that they want to ask about Jahdae Barron or potentially some other prospects that the Buffalo Bills or any NFL team for that matter could potentially be looking at. So again, highly recommend you subscribe and turn on those bell notifications because I want you to be here during a live stream. And if you are here for the first time on a live chat, please go ahead and introduce yourself because we have a hell of a community over here. And I am looking forward to chopping it up with each and every single one of you. I just watched some tape on him. He is great in coverage and also great in the flat. We have Joshy coming on in. I mean, look, what we just ended up taking a look at was a corner that is super versatile. He is a zone maniac. He's very good at tricking opposing quarterbacks right into a turnover, right? He's a zone guy. Yes, he's a little grabby, all right? But hopefully that's something that our DB's coach could really go on ahead and just sort of pull away from him. That's a red flag. And second red flag, so would have to be struggles on the outside, but he's still solid, right? And like we don't need another slot guy. We need a dude that can play on the outside, a CB2. Another thing that stands out, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to put myself in the shoes of a Buffalo Bills scout and or Brandon Beane. And a big factor is what can you bring to the table immediately? And what you can bring to the table immediately is being versatile on all facets of the game, right? He's solid in zone. He's solid in man. He's fast as hell, runs a 4.4 40. So he's going to be able to go out ahead and match up against several wide receivers. And he's also a special teams contributor. That is something that Brandon Beane and the Buffalo Bills have historically loved. So very, very intriguing. Elam looked lost in man and in zone. Zone is more feel and stay in area. Man is follow and get your ankles twisted. I mean, listen, that is something I'm going to continue to put out there is always be careful, right? With trying to hyper focus on a position. That is how we got Kyer Elam. Was just like, oh my God, we need a corner. We need a corner. Oh my God, our number one prospect in Trent McDuffie was taken 2 picks away. Rather than us going and finding the next best fit based off of our positional need, we panic picked a corner that didn't fit our system in the first place. So if we truly want a one-tech defensive tackle, like in the first round, and if all the first round graded defensive tackles are gone, do not take a defensive tackle. Do not. If we need to trade down, by all means, trade down. Do not make a panic pick based off of a sole position. Do not assign a position to each respective round. Have all of your positional needs right in front of you, and then you take the best player available based off of that position group, even if it is a wide receiver. If all defensive tackles, if all corners are gone that you do not have a first-round grade on, take that wide receiver. If all of them are gone, like right within the first, go on ahead and trade down and grab yourself another second-round pick and get us a third-round pick. Precisely of what I'm thinking right here. Like I said, we have 3 second rounders, 20 to 27 first rounders, and 6 are a bust. That is unfortunately one of the downsides of being a good football team. We very rarely get to pick in the first round where there is a plethora of first round talent that could be taken. And do you think he will play on the outside or the nickel position? I will tell you what, my friend, likely he would be on the outside. Situationally, he would be in the slot, but he's versatile, right? Like he's been able to play safety. He has been able to play right on the boundary. Same thing in the slot. He's played dime as well. He's a Swiss Army knife of corners, a Swiss Army knife of corners that I think would be able to transition well. What is your thoughts on Trey Amos? Solid dude. And so I wish that I would have saw a bit more of him while I was at the Senior Bowl, but he ended up injuring himself while he was practicing. So I really didn't get to see a lot, but have no fear. I'm going to be unpacking a lot of these prospects all week long. So make sure that you subscribe and turn on bell notifications because we're going to be talking quite a bit. Dan, what do you think about Campbell linebacker is not a need, but if he was there at 30, he would be the best player available. And I think he is better than Bernard and Milano. I feel like it would be redundant, especially since the Buffalo Bills do run like that. Sort of like, so the Bills, like, I'd say 75 to 80% of the time are running with only 2 linebackers. I mean, if he's there, I suppose I wouldn't be pissed off, but I don't know. Absolutely need a defensive nose tackle, and size does matter along with nasty. For sure. But like I said, say, for example, that all of the top defensive tackles are gone right before it's pick 30, right? I don't want to take a defensive tackle that should have been taken in the mid-second round at our first round pick, right? Like that's like how you get into a Kyer Elam situation from what I have seen. Thoughts on Revel? I love Revel, bro. I love Revel. He was probably one of the most talented corners going into last year. He was going to be a first round. If he didn't tear his ACL in September of last year, he would have been a top 5 pick. Like he is an absolute stud over at ECU. I would love Revel, but I think you would be rolling the dice. If, for example, and honestly, I think this is what's going to happen. This is my prediction, and this is not going to be sexy. It's probably going to piss some people off here. But I honestly think that what the Buffalo Bills are about to do is that we are about to sign Dane Jackson again to a very modest contract right in free agency because of the familiarity. And if we were to turn around and draft Siobhan Revel in the early second, right? Say, for example, that we were able to trade down slightly, um, then I would also be a happy camper. I really, really would. But I know it's not sexy, but I'm telling you what is realistic. I think the Buffalo Bills are about to sign Dane Jackson again since he was released by the Panthers. All right. Due to familiarity, he'll be CB2 at least at the beginning of the season. And I would love Siobhan Revel because you're rolling the dice on him because he just tore his ACL. But prior to injury, I think that dude was better than Will Campbell and right out of Michigan. I feel like I'd be okay with that. Dan, would it be wise instead of trading back to trade up and get a special guy that would fit a need to be a step up? No, because I like a lot of the mid-round talent, especially in the third, the fourth, and the fifth round this year. And we don't currently have a third round pick, right? And trading up past like 20, like right into the teens, is going to cost a significant amount of cash. And I can't really think of a player that like I would want to trade that significantly up for. I mean, of course, outside of some top 10 picks, but I feel like it would cost an absolute mint and to get it done. I thought that too, Dan. Dane Jackson. It's not exciting, but it's something the Buffalo Bills would do. It is something the Buffalo Bills would do. It's not worth drafting a defensive tackle, like you said. We have free agency and need to pick for corner. Coverage has been a big issue. I mean, so we did lead the league in the turnover differential, right? And I do typically like our coverage schemes. But the problem is that like when you're not getting pressure on the quarterback, I don't care how good your corners are, how good your secondary is. Eventually a wide receiver and or a pass catching weapon is going to find open space, right? So I do want somebody else out there that could really be a force in the secondary. And trust me, if there is a defensive tackle with a first round grade that somehow falls to us at the 30th overall pick, you are damn right. I want to take that dude. Like we all heard that Jonathan Allen from the Washington Commanders, big defensive tackle. He was just instructed by the Commanders that he is allowed to seek a trade. He's 30 years old. A lot of people in the Bills Mafia community is interested in kicking the tires on this prospect. Um, that could be something, right? Like we could potentially go after Jonathan Allen. I don't know, but that's kind of where I'm at. Square is saying, I think that there are at least 4 corners in this class better than Dane. I'm not saying we should do it. I'm just telling you that that's something I guarantee we're going to see come across our screen here within the next couple of weeks. I promise you that's what's going to happen, bro. We are going to see breaking Adam Schefter, Buffalo Bills sign Dane Jackson. I promise you. That's that's more than likely what's going to happen, right? Like we are going to walk away from Rasul Douglas and we are going to somehow get Elam off of this roster. I'm not particularly sure that anybody's going to send over any sort of valuable trade assets or draft assets for Kyer Elam, but I think that we're going to be 2 corners missing once this is all said and done. So that's where we're at. Dan, what team would you least want to win the Super Bowl? Least want to win? Every team except for the Buffalo Bills, man. Every team except for the Buffalo Bills. I don't even want a first round draft pick. I want Garrett and or Max Crosby. I mean, listen, I feel like a lot of us are hoping that that's the case because again, right? F that pick, bro. Screw that pick. Like we said, we are a good football team. And 9 times out of 10, there are only 20 to 25 first round graded players in each and every single draft class. So yes, I am on board with you. Send over those late first round draft picks. Get us a Myles Garrett. Get us a Max Crosby. Like I said, man, that second round is absolutely insane. I'd fire off 2 first round picks and a third next year. And for either of those guys, figure it out. That's kind of where I'm at. I am not in on free agency. I would much prefer to draft a couple of defensive tackles and develop the guy. Yeah, true. But here's the deal, right? It doesn't matter whether or not that you were drafted first overall or you were like maybe like mid rounds, etc. Because I feel like everybody wants Myles Garrett production and Max Crosby production, right? The only way to guarantee Myles Garrett production or Max Crosby production is by signing Myles Garrett or Max Crosby. That is the only way that you can guarantee that sort of production. And then you start accounting for injuries, you start accounting for all that. So that's not even so much of a guarantee. But the drafts, it doesn't matter where you pick, it's always a gamble. I feel like we could all look over at the Jacksonville Jaguars with Trayvon Walker in 2022, right? They should have went with Aiden Hutchinson. They did not, right? First overall pick largely did not live up to the hype. It's happened so many different times, right? So I'm fine with developing. I'm fine with going in the drafts, but as far as interior defensive tackle, yes, I would agree with you. Let's go on ahead and get an actual one tech defensive tackle in the drafts, especially since we have done it all year long, all throughout the Sean McDermott era, where we ended up bringing in some vet. I agree with you there that we should bring in that defensive tackle in the draft. But edge rusher, if you want Myles Garrett production, folks, the only way to guarantee it is to bring in Myles Garrett. That is the only way. Is it worth to bring Khalil Mack or all in with Garrett and or Crosby? I'm good on Khalil Mack, man. What is he, like 34, 35 years old? He's probably on his last leg. I mean, say, for example, that we can get him on a super cheap deal, then I would be fine with that. I've heard rumors about Bosa as well, and not and not the one Bosa brother that we all want, but it's Joey Bosa. I've heard rumors about that. Like, say Myles Garrett does not work out, he'd be cheap as hell, but like we'd be rolling the dice on whether or not that he'd be able to play more than 6 games for us. Um, I feel like we're gonna make a move. It's just a matter of where. If Garrett cannot get it done, then get some run stuffers like Kenneth Grant or Derek Harmon in the first and Joshua Farmer in the fourth. Square hot take: Garrett is not moved until the trade deadline. Interesting. Bean does his magic in the later rounds, so F the first round and go after Myles Garrett. No time to develop someone. We need proven talents. Lynn, Von Miller crushed my opinion on older free agent guys to fill that need. Well, like, here's the deal, though. Like, Von Miller actually started off prior to his freak injury where, like, he was looking damn good. And that looked like a hell of a deal for us. And then afterwards, he just wasn't the same. Last year, he was a hell of a lot better. But I mean, what can you do? Walker at DT, late second, 6'7", 340, and athletic. I would be fine as long as that is in the second round. I hope the Finns or the Ravens get Elam. Oh my God. Fill the gaps, Dan. How many more years does McDermott have in our organization? Several, man. So the only way that Sean McDermott ends up getting fired is as if I would say, goes multiple years with no playoffs, right? Like, really what I want you guys to do is look at the Pagulas and think of everything that they have gone through while owning the Sabres. Like, they look at Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane as godsends, right? Because it's actually an organization that is competitive and wildly competitive, right? Like, since McDermott, like, we've had 2 AFC championship appearances, 5 years in a row for the AFC East. It's not what I want to do with them, but it's all about looking at it from a perspective of an ownership group that has the dumpster fire that the Buffalo Sabres are. And then you ultimately end up looking over at Sean McDermott and the Buffalo Bills, and that's how you get it done, right? Again, I always want to say that there are 31 losers each and every single NFL season. And for the past 10 years, it's largely been dominated by the Kansas City Chiefs. And before that was the New England Patriots and the Philadelphia Eagles for 2 years, and the Rams won. It's largely been the Kansas City Chiefs for the AFC. That's all it's been. So I honestly don't think that he's going anywhere anytime soon unless we see an absolute meltdown where this team just completely regresses and starts playing like the Miami Dolphins, or they start playing like the Jets or something like that. Lance, for wide receiver, Jaden Higgins or Trey Harris would be a steal in the late second or third round, then get a CB and an edge. Lance is coming in. Love that, bro. Great point, Dan. Thank you. Yeah, man. No problem, man. No problem, brother. I want to talk Buffalo Bills. What's good, Dan? And what about Watson, defensive tackle? He's like 450 from Florida. I'm going to have to go on ahead and I'm going to have to check that out and check that prospect out. Haven't had a lot of opportunities of looking over his film, but have no fear, man. We have a lot of requests over here. We're going to be taking a look. Sandman, if them Pagulas are smart and they should pay the refs and Godell, no other way to win a Super Bowl, man. Write the check, man. I will help. Trade Cook to the Cowboys for an early first draft. Genty, I would not be going for a running back in the first round, especially since Ray Davis was pretty good. Let's see. All right, dude, you annoy me. Yeah, you annoy me. You're done. You annoy me, bro. You annoy me, brother. This is what we're doing from now on, guys. I welcome trolls, like for the most part during the season. But not anymore. Because you want to know why? Because trolls actually end up like hurting the experience of people that watch the rewatch portion of my videos. So like all of them are gone now. So done. Finished. He's gone. Absolutely. Sorry. Maybe Lindy Ruff should coach the Buffalo Bills. Absolutely not. Bean needs to be on the hot seat. If players, not the coaching, special players make plays, not Coleman's. I like it. Tony comes in and says, what would you think about trading Cook for picks and so to use in the draft for defense because he wants 15 million and that is never happening. So here's the deal. So I think that we're going to give James Cook a deal. I don't think it's going to be 15 million, but I do think that it's going to make him happy. Like you hear players say that I want an average annual salary, but what they're really looking for is guaranteed money, right? I think that his deal is going to be closer to about $11.5 to $12 million per year, 4-year contract, and about 60 to 70% of it is going to be guaranteed. And I'll tell you why I'm not upset about that. And so I'll tell you exactly why. And so I wouldn't be upset about it. Is since we have seen how significant that this sort of cap room all in all has been raising, like $30 million in 1 year. And that's obviously thanks to YouTube TV. That's obviously thanks to several other situations here. I'm not so much scared of paying Cook a contract like that. Say, for example, that he's real about the 15 million or wants 17, 18 million dollars. I'm sure that Brandon Beane would ultimately end up entertaining this. But don't be so scared about that contract, right? Like a $15 million 4-year contract is not the type of contract that ruins an organization. A type of contract that ruins an organization is a bad quarterback, and then also an edge rusher contract. Those are the two sort of contracts that ruin an NFL organization. A $15 million a year for like 3 to 4 years, especially with how much the cap room for the NFL has been going nuts for the past couple of years, is not going to ruin us by any stretch of the imagination. Dan, deal those late first-round picks and do what is necessary to get a premium defensive end to win a Super Bowl. Great job, as always, from Puerto Rico. Go Bills. And hell, my guy, thank you so much, man. I appreciate that, and I hope you are doing well. I would love to have Cook at 3 years, $27 million. Oh, look at that. So $9 million is what you're looking for. And $9 million average annual salary. Where is Cook going to go? And the Texans, and then blow out an ACL. He knows he is close to greatness. Tua ruins an organization. A contract like that ruins an organization. Not a small little running back like sort of contract, right? It's kind of where it's all said and done. But all right, folks, that's going to have to do it for today's episode of Draft Prospects. That was Jahdae Barron. We had a very exhilarating conversation. I highly recommend that y'all smash that like button for me. It's the easiest way to show love at what I do over here on this channel. And then also subscribe as well. If you are watching the replay, make sure you hit those bell notifications because I want you to be a part of my live chat community in which that I always turn to at the end of each and every single one of my episodes. Love each and every single one of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. And before I let you go, you better always remember, let's go Buffalo. Wow, it's been a while.